Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hope you're all well, inshallah. Uh, we're here with you again, inshallah. This is your host, Brother Shazad, and we're here to talk about Muslim marriages, specifically around like how can we effectively uh, reach out and attract our ideal spouse. So this is kind of something which is going to be of benefit to all the singles out there, but also those of you who are married and having trouble navigating some of the challenges in terms of your marriages, inshallah. We're going to really kind of focus on what is it that can allow us to be ready to receive our ideal spouse or our soulmate. So inshallah, I've got a very qualified guest, inshallah, to come and speak to us about this. Sister Shalena Ali, who I'm just gonna, and I thought let me see if I can get her on. So
Oops, sorry,
hopefully,
one
inshallah,
minute.
we can. No worries, no worries. Some teething issues there, connectivity problems, but alhamdulillah, she's with us. That's the main thing, and we get her back on shortly, inshallah. But yeah, we really want to talk about like what is really stopping us from hang on, Sister Shimina, let me just try and add you again. Yep, just invited you on now, inshallah, so hopefully you'll be able to join this time without
Hey,
any issues. Oops, same again. There you
assalamu
are.
alaikum. Sorry about that.
Awesome. Wa alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. No, that's fine. Thank you for joining. I was just kind of doing a sort of a brief intro there. So yeah, so alhamdulillah, thank you for joining. I think you're the best person for this topic, right? In terms of helping our brothers and sisters, mainly our sisters. Seems like most of the people that kind of engage in these types of platforms and discussions are our sisters. So I guess we really want to try and help them to get them into a position where they are ready to receive their ideal spouse. MashaAllah, Brother Mani's already very excited. Alhamdulillah. Alaikum. Thank you for joining. Um, so, yeah, ready to receive our ideal soulmate. Like, what needs to happen in order for us? And this is like across the board, regardless of whether people are looking for marriage, whether people are navigating troubles in their existing marriages. Maybe people are on the, kind of in a difficult situation where they've been divorced or separated and now really trying to get their life back on track. I think what we're going to hear today is going to be able to, inshallah, help people, give them some real practical solutions. I hope, inshallah, to manage some of those challenges. So, very briefly, inshallah, Sister Shalena Ali is a relationship and mindset coach, a very good one. I don't invite people on unless I think they are like best in what they do, right? So she's definitely very, very good, guys. For those of you who haven't heard of her before, she's doing great work, alhamdulillah, helping Muslim women. Is it mainly Muslim women
Yeah,
that you work
Jazakallah
with,
khairan
or
for that,
is it?
for those kind words. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I do work with predominantly Muslim women. It's not that I am closed off to anybody else, but I guess a lot of Muslim women relate to me. So I do have a lot of Muslim
Yeah.
women reaching out to me, and I work with both single Muslim women who are looking for a life companion, and also married women who are looking to reconnect emotionally with their husbands. Maybe they've gone through a rough patch and they're just looking for some support. So yeah, alhamdulillah.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. So, in your bio, I remember it mentioned something about helping people overcome
Yes.
unhealthy relationship patterns, right? I think that's something which is really important, isn't it? If they really want to get that connection again, whether they're in an existing marriage or even if it's in some of the DMs and the conversations that they're having in the courting process with potential spouses, right? So I think this is a really, really key area, and that's a very sort of think the word there that you use or the phrase overcoming unhealthy
Mhm.
relationship
Yeah.
patterns. I think
What
that
I
is really
found is
so.
before I
Yeah.
kind of specifically started getting into relationship coaching, um, I was finding that there were patterns. Everyone has a pattern that repeats throughout their lives. Relationships are just such a huge part of our lives. You know, we're in a relationship with someone every day. Every single day we're interacting with people. You know, even if you're not actually in an intimate relationship, married or not, you are interacting with people, whether it's family members, friends, colleagues, someone, but mostly you have a relationship with yourself and with God. And so when I was coaching women, it always ended up coming back to their relationships. And there was always some healing work to do.
Yeah.
And upon digging deeper, we always found that there was some healing that needed doing from the past. So there's always some kind of heartbreak that's happened in the past. And when we don't process that pain, we hold on to it. We hold on to it subconsciously. And then what we do is we unconsciously repeat those patterns, trying to almost recreate it and fix what happened in the past, but actually we end up staying stuck in that same pattern. And I see this with nearly everyone. I've seen it in myself. You know, it's a human nature. It's a challenge that all humans face. And so this is what I help women work through, because until we can really identify what our repeating pattern is, we can't create a new one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Interesting. You mentioned that this is kind of something you experienced firsthand. I think that's really the beauty of the coaching industry, I think, or as some people call it, the self-help industry, where in our modern times, you know, we've got people who, and of course that's like not overlooking the traditional form of kind of seeking help with these types of issues, which is like, you know, the medical fraternity or practitioners, therapists, people like that. But I feel like coaches bring something quite unique to the mix, where it's this blend of, and of course they are trained and they've learned, you know, with people, and but then they mix that with some of, or blend it with their own experience, right? Their own, which is really, I think that's so critical, isn't it? It just adds another dimension to the whole kind of dynamics in the session with the client, when you can really connect with what they're saying and share from the heart. You know, it's not just a transaction. It's not just a relationship, a professional relationship. It actually becomes a very personal one, doesn't it, with clients? I feel like my clients are like part of me, part of, almost like part of my family. And I'm thinking about them, and even I'm in the prayer sometimes, and I'm making dua for them, and you know, it's just becomes such an important part of it. It's a very unique relationship.
And you know, it is very powerful, like you say, talking. I mean, it's great to have the qualifications and the practical side of things, but it's like, you know, when you're in school and you study academically, you still need to do the work experience. Like all employers look for the work experience, because that's where you get to put it all into practice. And so I love the qualifications side of things, but really it's when you've been through it yourself, when you can relate to what the other person's saying, that's how you get to coach more powerfully. And when because the thing is, when I first started facing challenges in my relationship, I tried talking therapy, I tried CBT, and what I was finding is that these they weren't really getting any results, you know, and it was very surface level, and I just found myself really craving. There's this inner kind of desire to want to go deeper, but they weren't able to take me there. They weren't able, it was out of scope for them. And then I just came across coaching. You know, I'd never really heard of coaching before that, but I think I just started following a few Muslim coaches, and everything they were talking about really was what I needed at the time. And so that's what really led me towards coaching more than therapy or anything else in that field, because it's so powerful, and I really find it's more transformational in a shorter period of time. Whereas therapy, you can be talking to a therapist, and that's great for certain challenges, but I find if you're looking for a result, then coaching, for me personally anyway, I can't speak for everyone, has been mostly transformational in a shorter period of time. So yeah, I'm definitely an advocate for coaching all the way. And like you mentioned there, like I have such a close bond with the women that I work with. We connect, and I guess it is because you're in such a vulnerable conversation and you're willing to go deep. You're literally pouring your heart out to this person that you don't even know, but you're trusting them with all of your pain, all of your trauma, your whole heart, and it's just so vulnerable. But that's what creates connection. And that's actually what, this is an important topic, actually. I'm glad we've touched on this because this is what we need in our relationships, right? I mean, how many marriages are basically two people living together like flatmates, right? These are one of the kind of key challenges that I
Yes.
see. And I've been there as well, so I can relate to it in that sense. Just living together as flatmates, like two friends. Maybe you see each other
Yeah.
passing in the morning before you're off to go to work in the morning. Maybe you come back at dinner time, pass each other again, stick the telly on, you know, start watching whatever's on TV, start watching Netflix, reruns of Friends or whatever. If you've got kids, you're busy with the kids' routine and you don't really connect.
Yeah.
You can't have those moments of vulnerability, but and some people aren't open to it, and I think that's part of the problem that many marriages face. But if we were just open to having those conversations, going deeper, then I feel like more marriages would be healthier, but they'd feel more fulfilling as well.
Yeah. Yeah. MashaAllah. That's everything you just said there was just like visualizing my own journey over the last sort of 5 or 6 years of going through the counseling and the CBT and all of that stuff. And there's
Mm.
khair, there's good in everything. Don't get me wrong. There's good positives from it. But like coaching, like if it wasn't for coaching, would I be sat here
Mm.
speaking to you now and like, helping other people all over the world? And some very like challenging situations. Even like very early on in my coaching career, I was having like
Mm.
suicide cases and people really like struggling like emotionally, psychologically, and alhamdulillah, it's been like yeah, I just wouldn't have been able to make this type of progress at such a short space of time. And then even with the traditional therapy kind of route, there's processes, qualifications that one needs to undertake, and that becomes quite a lengthy process. So yeah, I think like for me, it's been an absolute game changer, alhamdulillah. And yes, of course, there are going to be people out there who are maybe more well versed and more well qualified than others. But you get that with therapists. Some therapists are better than others. Some are not that great. I always hear stories about people working with therapists for years and not necessarily getting a lot of sort of progress in that regard. But I just want to come back to, before we kind of really get our teeth stuck into this topic, which is a great topic, but like your personal journey, like you mentioned, you've done obviously a little bit of, kind of groundwork yourself to get to where you are now. You alluded to the fact that you also had your own challenges. Like what brought Sister Shalena to this place now where, mashallah, and we're going to talk about your group coaching and your kind of program and the work that you're doing, but like the journey, if you can maybe just encapsulate or very at a high level summarize like what's brought you from all of that stuff when you're doing the CBT and your own relationship challenges to where you are now. How's that all worked out? What were you even doing here really on this life?
Well, I think I spent a lot of my life really feeling quite lost, which I think a lot of women,
Okay.
especially from like our culture, I think women in our culture might be able to relate more, maybe more from my generation. I think it's probably changed now for the younger generation. But, I grew up very kind of secluded from the world, very protected in a bubble. My parents were very protective, obviously came from another country to this country. It was that first generation of immigrants from a developing country. Not fully, my mum didn't really speak English, and so they were afraid of a lot of things. We didn't have a lot of the Asian community around us at the time. We didn't have a lot of Muslims around us at the time. We had like quite a small, close-knit community, which was great for us. They became our family, but we didn't really have any other family around us. So there was a lot of fear-based thoughts going through my parents' minds. And of course, they were doing their best. And I didn't realize, of course, at the time, it's only when I hit some challenges in my marriage, in my relationship, that I realized, and that was coming into my 30s, before that, I was clueless, right, to why I was doing certain things, why I was behaving and thinking in certain ways. And I guess, I don't know, I think for most people, when you hit your 30s, you become more reflective and you start looking for answers and you really start coming into who you are as a person. And I think that's what happened to me, you know, because I didn't really know who I was before that, you know. I was, until I was married, you know, I was at home with my parents and couldn't really do much. I wasn't really allowed to do much, you know, because that's how my parents protected me and my siblings. And so I didn't really have many interactions with other people. You know, I even went into work quite late. And so that's why I always say I feel like I'm living my life 10 years later. Like there's been a 10-year delay somewhere there. But I've been learning it since that, because I started facing some challenges in my marriage, and it was all based on things that had happened in the past. It was to do with the relationship I had with my parents, and it was all starting to come out, because this is what happens when you're in an intimate relationship, when you're that close and you're married to someone. This is when all of these triggers and past traumas come out. And when I'm talking about traumas, it's, you know, I didn't go through any huge trauma. You know, they talk about the big T and the small t, you know, and sometimes traumas and healing can just be from a collection of small T traumas, you know. And like I say, looking back on my childhood, there was nothing that I can really think of. You know, I was just very quiet. But again, I think one of the small T traumas is that women aren't allowed, girls aren't allowed to experience life and, you know, feel capable. They're not able to speak up. And really, I had many challenges just even articulating what I wanted to say, what I was feeling. You know, communication to me was really difficult, you know, and that's something that really got in my way for creating deep connection in relationships. Even just maybe 10 years ago, even probably like 6 years ago, I really found it difficult to articulate what I wanted to say, you know, and it really stopped me from finding that deep connection with anyone, like literally anyone. I had friends, I had close friends, but even then I couldn't articulate what I really wanted to say. So like the caliber of my relationships were not very deep. They were very surface level. And so, as I mentioned, I wanted some support. I wanted some help due to the challenges I was facing. Sought help in talk therapy and CBT, even marriage counselling, and that kind of got the ball rolling. Actually, you know, just starting from listening to like Tony Robbins and then like Marissa Peer, and then, you know, once you get into that circle online on YouTube, you know, it just goes from one person to another person, and it just kind of snowballs from there. And I guess the same thing happened with the Muslim coaches that I was following on Instagram. And then I just realized how important relationships actually are to me. And I realized how much I really wanted to be of service to people, so I could feel fulfillment in my own life without having to find that fulfillment through my children or my partner. You know, after I had my children, I was literally living my life for them, through them. And I found a lot of my anxiety came out the moment I had children. Before that, I didn't know I had any form of anxiety at all. But it came out from the very first night that my first son was born 10 years ago. I just didn't sleep at all the first night he was born, because I thought something was going to happen to him, you know. And it's just crazy the bond that you have, but it's also crazy how anything can trigger anxiety and stress. And so, yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what got me into coaching, wanting to help other women, save them from the challenges that I faced, guiding them with the wisdom that I feel I have now and the experience that I have now. That's allowed me to really deepen my relationships and really connect with even strangers, you know, online, that I never thought I'd be able to do with my clients, with the women who reach out to me, my friends, my family, you know, whoever comes into my life now. I'm able to be vulnerable and have those deeper conversations, so that I actually feel fulfillment, but I can help other people feel that as well at the same time. So sorry, I don't know if I've gone off on a tangent there, but hopefully that's answered your question.
Oh, absolutely. Jazakallah khair. That was beautiful, right? You know, you really kind of did a bit of a deep dive there in terms of, you know, what's been going on for you, and yeah, just everything you said really resonates. I guess one question off the back of that, and subhanAllah, we haven't actually started the topic, guys. So this is just really interesting, right? And as we discussed before doing the live, right, that yes, we have a topic and we have questions and as a reference point, but let's just keep this very organic and see which way it goes. And everything we've talked about so far was not planned at all, right? It's just very, very much off the script. But it's interesting listening to you because I feel so like I can sense so much like so many parallels with what you're saying and my own journey over the last 6 or 7 years. But one question that just came to my mind off the back of what you said. So I understand what you're saying about like you had a good childhood. I mean, I can relate to that. You know, I definitely didn't have no major issues, you know, growing up, alhamdulillah, had that balance, you know, both mother and father. And there was a part of me that wanted a little bit more attention from my father, but you know, he came here, he was, like you said, you know, he was a first generation immigrant. He came with the mindset that he was going to make money and go back home one day, and never ended up going back home. But then obviously he wasn't necessarily able to build that same connection rapport with his children. But then, you know, it was a nice balance because dad was a little bit strict, but then mum, you know, kind of spoiled me. I was a bit of a mummy's boy. And because of that, I've had a few challenges in life, let's just put it that way. But alhamdulillah, I'm grateful, you know, for everything and all of those experiences. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for those experiences. But generally speaking, there was no real major issues. But even then, later on in my journey, I realized that there was still three areas that I was definitely affected in. Number one was I didn't feel good enough. Number two, I go through this with all my clients. Like I say, look, whatever's going on in your life is more than likely going to be coming down to these three things. Number one, you're not feeling good enough. Number one, number two, I wasn't feeling loved. Number three, I wasn't feeling worthy. And that's on different levels for different people, okay, depending on how challenging or traumatic their childhood and their experiences growing up were. But I realized that despite having a very, you know, balanced upbringing, those three things were still prevalent.
Yeah.
But I realized that a lot later.
I can relate to that. Absolutely. I can relate to all three of those. Okay. And the women that I work with, they, I think, can all have all three of those as well. And I think part of the problem with that is that because we didn't really understand each other, you know, like our parents, I think part of it is love languages. Part of it is that our parents didn't receive the emotional connection that they needed from their parents. Like my dad left his parents back home and came to this country with his uncle when he was like 9 years old, you know, and so he barely saw his parents. You know, of course they spoke on the phone. There was a time I remember my mum used to write letters. Do you remember those envelopes with the blue and red? Those envelopes, yeah, and writing letters. I still have that memory of them writing letters when they didn't have mobile phones and things when I was very young.
By the way, just for the benefit of all, we're both 25 years old, by the way.
22.
So, two old people. 22, exactly. I always tell people when they ask my age, I say, well, the English say that life begins at 40. So, you know, like, so if let's just say I'm 42, even though I'm not 42, technically I'm 2 years old.
Yeah, I've just realised, right? I've given my age away completely there, haven't I? Whoops.
Assalamu alaikum to Sister Samra, by the way. Thanks for joining and thank you for your kind observation earlier. I did notice that. Sister Samra, mashallah, a great sister, a great star in the local community. Mashallah, she does a lot of charity work. And somebody I went on a deployment with recently to Turkey. I just want to give her, you're the best. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I feel like our parents didn't receive the emotional connection that they needed from their parents. You know, I think for most people in the Asian community, even now, I think it's getting better now with our generation because of the awareness we have. But emotions were something that, you know, weren't shared. You know, vulnerability, we didn't really see our parents be vulnerable. I certainly didn't. You know, whatever traumas or challenges they were facing, they kept them, you know, within themselves. And we know now that it's better to talk about things. Keeping things inside only causes more, you know, physical ailments as well. And it just makes it all worse. So I think the two of the challenges were the fact that we didn't talk about things. We didn't talk about emotions and what we really needed to feel loved. So I definitely can relate to not feeling loved, not feeling good enough, I can't remember the last one that you said, but in general, not feeling accepted for who I am. Worthy, yeah, so
Worthy.
worthiness
Yeah.
and acceptance, which is what makes us
Yeah.
feel loved. We know now that we need to feel seen, heard, and accepted and understood to feel loved, to feel like we are lovable. And so
Yeah.
I didn't receive that either. My parents' love language was, feed my mum's, of course, like most mums, it's feeding you, it's acts of service, doing things for you, but predominantly cooking and feeding you. And what our parents did was, because it was coming from a place of survival, it was, feeding you, clothing you, making sure you've got a roof over your head, maybe buying you gifts.
Yeah.
So I think we had different love languages as well. Like I know now my love language is words of affirmation, but of course they didn't communicate in that way. It's physical touch. Again,
Yeah.
after a certain age, there wasn't any physical touch, you know. As I got older, yes, when I was younger, but
Yeah.
and we're able to still do that with younger children. But after a certain age, it kind of just stopped. And I know it's not the same for everybody, but that was my experience. And I think that's what's led to me to feel in my intimate relationships that I'm not lovable or I'm not deserving of love. And I wasn't good enough. I mean, I don't now because I've worked through it, but that's what I found was my root core belief.
Mashallah. This is a
Yeah,
conversation about life. This is what I call a real conversation. These conversations are just, I can talk about that type
same.
of
I
stuff like all
was just
day.
saying
It's
that to my
just
friend
so
recently. I was like,
so
deep
powerful.
conversations are just what I'm passionate about now. I could talk about this stuff all day. And I think this is why I love coaching so much.
Absolutely, absolutely, mashallah. So this is really good because what we've just done there, just through talking about our own personal experiences, we've pretty much like made it very, very clear that whatever challenge people are going through, regardless of whether they're married, not married, divorced, whatever it is, um, like we know what's going on now, right? Okay, so like the next kind of step here really then is so because I think it's fair to say
Mm.
that most of us are going through those challenges. At least one of those three, more than likely all three of those emotions are being felt. Okay, so what's the solution then?
Mm.
This is the crux of the matter now. Really get kind of the main sort of aspect of the discussion. Um, can you finish your story of Shazad? What story is that? No, who is this person anyway? We'll come back to my story, Sister Salma. Okay, so well, I'll tell you privately. um, yeah. So what's the solution then? Like your clients that are coming up to you, regardless of let's just for make it for simplicity. Let's use the
Mm.
example of someone who wants to get married. Yeah, like how can you help them if they have grown up having these emotions, or maybe they just realized listening to you now, hey, hang on, yeah, there was a lack of self-worth, there was a lack of self-love, I have
Mm.
genuinely felt not good enough growing up, and it doesn't mean they had a really bad childhood, but they've just realized, okay, now they've had the epiphany, the aha moment, the breakthrough. What's the solution then? How would you help them
Yeah.
navigate through that? A single,
Yeah,
let's
so
use
I
the
mean,
example of a
even
single.
in general, it's really we all need to do some form of healing work. We need to do some of the inner work, which is really reflecting on things that have happened in the past, where we've experienced heartbreak, any form of heartbreak, from anything like your dad telling you no, you can't buy that toy, to your mum's telling you off for spilling a glass of milk or breaking a dish. Anything like that, a child feels rejected and they feel abandoned. So when I'm talking about healing work and inner work, it's about finding those events that created what I call emotional wounds. And maybe you can relate to this term as well. So we all have emotional wounds that build up. And the two biggest emotional wounds that I find are the rejection wound and the abandonment wound, where someone has left or they've been told no. And so we carry these, if we don't heal it, if we don't do the inner work to process it and release it, we carry these into all of our relationships, how we show up into the world, right? We carry this guard and we guard our heart because we decide at the very first time this happens that we never want to feel this rejection, this pain of abandonment ever again. So every time it happens, we just add layers and layers of like shields around our heart. And so the trouble is, when you're creating and building relationships with people, you need to really drop this mask that people have, because that shield becomes a mask, and you start molding yourself and adjusting yourself to fit into circles. And I used to do this all of the time. I would hide who I really am, or I didn't know who I really was, but I'd try and fit in, and I would change depending on the circle of people I was around, because I didn't know who I was. So I would do whatever it took to fit into that circle. Right? If someone was into like shopping and holidays, I would try and talk more about that kind of thing. If someone was, if I was around a group of mothers, we'd be talking more about children. You know, um, and yeah, you would just try and mold into. So if there was like a group of quiet, quite reserved people in the circle, then I would be quite reserved. But if I was around people who were extroverts and confident, I would try to be like them. You would just try and become this louder version of yourself. But it's all a mask, right? Because it's not the real, authentic you. So these shields don't work when you want to create a relationship with a long-term companion, a spouse. And these traumas come back out when you're getting to know someone in that way, because what you're having to do really is pour your heart out and reveal your whole heart, but you're unable to because you want to just protect yourself. You don't want to feel rejected by this person. So what a lot of women do is they'll try and show their best selves. They won't be fully honest and open. And we all do it. We all try and show really great first impressions because we fear being rejected by anyone. Even if we're not in a relationship, we don't want to feel rejected. And when we do, we still take it to heart. And so the next time we take that forward into the next interaction. And then what can happen is if you do end up marrying someone, you're not your whole self. You're not authentic. And then the mask comes down, right? Because you can't keep a mask on for that long. The mask eventually comes down and you're living with someone who you don't know. They don't know you, you don't know them, because now the mask is off. You thought you were marrying a certain type of character or personality, and actually they're not truthfully that way. And so this is where the challenges come about. But sorry, just going back to about how single women can face challenges, is that they're just very guarded. So they're unable to connect. They're unable to really get clear on what they want and need in a partner. They go maybe more for physical attraction or achievements, like how much has this person studied, what kind of car do they have, how do they dress, how do they cut their hair, that kind of surface level attribute, as opposed to, okay, are we compatible? Do we have the same types of temperaments? Do our personalities fit together? And I think we really have to do the healing work so that we know ourselves first, because it always starts with a relationship you have with yourself. Until you know yourself, you are never going to find the right match. And again, I'm saying that from experience. The only relationship you ever have with yourself, the only constant is the one with yourself. Other than with Allah, it's you. You're the only common denominator. So when you're having interactions and repeating the same pattern, you have to take ownership and accountability, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really powerful stuff. So I hear that. So in other words, I guess what you're saying is that the only opinion that really matters is the opinion that you have about yourself.
How you see yourself, yeah.
That because, like, regardless of where you are in terms of your life, married, not married, trying to get remarried again, or whatever challenge you're going through in any other area of your life, and this is also applicable to, like even your relationship with your creator, right? Most important thing, I think, like, it's like if you are like don't have a very high opinion about yourself, then can you really expect someone else to have a great opinion about you, or to love you in the way that you want to be loved? If you like you've got to give it to yourself first, fill your cup, in order for them to be able to open those channels
absolutely.
to receive.
And I always say you have to set the standard yourself, right? You have to set the standard for someone else to come in and follow that standard that you've already set for yourself.
Wow, mashallah, mashallah, that's beautiful. And like, in terms of like practically, how can we do this? How can we, like, what can we do practically to be able to then open the floodgates almost to having more conversations with people who are a good fit for us? Because what I find in terms of some of the challenges that singles are going through, is that they're not consciously doing it, but they're attracting, especially, let's say, for example, they didn't have a great relationship with their father. Okay, this is a very common one. Yeah, they didn't have a very great relationship with their father. He wasn't present, so they didn't really have that father figure, the one who made them feel like the prince or the princess, and that role model. And then what tends to happen, and they're not doing this consciously, these blocks are actually functioning at a subconscious level. They keep attracting people who ghost them and are not present for them. Or let's say they're married and like he's not, he's just not, once that initial spark wears off, he's not present, he's not interested,
Yeah.
or I'm not just picking on the brothers, it goes both
Yeah.
ways, but you see
This
what I
is
mean?
what
Like,
I,
this is subconscious. We are attracting that
yeah.
which is familiar. The human mind goes to that which is familiar. So how are we now going to break this cycle of, like, this repetitive cycle? Like, what can they do, like, practically, or what would you, like, what kind of tips or what kind of things would you
Yeah.
suggest for your clients to actually be able to
Yeah.
redress the
So, I
balance?
mean, I think the first step is always awareness. Always, first of all, we need
Yeah.
to be aware of these patterns and notice that it's coming up again. And so what you're mentioning there is that it's familiar. So if they didn't receive love in the way that they wanted from their father, they are then attracting men who are going to treat them that way eventually. Yeah, so they might be all in to start with,
Yes.
but what a lot of women always find is that in the end, they're repeating the same pattern and the same dynamic. And I think what I call it is trauma bonding, because what we normally find in the end is that the other person also has a similar wound, because we're actually attracted to
Yeah.
energies and how people make us feel. It's not actually a specific person that we're attracted to. I always find women think they think they're attracted to a certain person and they want to go into marriage with a certain person, but actually it's something about their energy and it's something about the way they make them feel. And it's that familiarity that they felt previously with their father. So the first step is awareness, to notice, okay, I seem to have this repeating pattern of emotionally unavailable men, or men who just ghost, or they're hot and cold. And then you keep falling back into this
Yeah.
anxiety and pining, and then all the codependent
Yeah.
relationship patterns that you keep falling into. So for me, at the most simplest level, it's awareness, and then it's deciding, do you want to break that pattern, right? If you really
Yeah.
want to break the pattern, then decide what you want to do, right? Take the action. So I always say you can add more peace, love, and freedom into your life by just using ADD, awareness, deciding, doing. Right, and the doing part is the action, seeking support from whoever you resonate with, whether it's counseling, therapy, or a coach, you know. But then it is
Yeah.
about going deeper into those wounds. And so for what I do with women is we go back to that first event. We do some subconscious programming, we do some rewiring, and I use a form of timeline therapy to go back
Okay.
into the event, the very first time that the subconscious mind remembers feeling rejected or abandoned. What we have to do is release that wound. That means feeling the emotions, choosing to release the emotions and let it go. Because when these things happen, we create a story in our mind. Children are always making it about themselves. So that's why as a child, we think, oh, it's my fault. There's something wrong with me. And so we create a story in our mind saying, oh, it must be that I'm not good enough. So we have to find the story, the meaning that we created as a child. And so what I help women do is
Yeah.
release that story and create a new story. So it might be through using affirmations. After we've done the release work, we have to release
Yeah.
it first. We have to feel the pain of the emotion to let the emotion flow and release out of the body. And then, only then, we can create a brand new story with affirmations, with, like I think we've talked about before, I am statements or I choose statements, writing out a new story. You can physically write out a new story for yourself and almost reprogram your mind to become another version of yourself. So I do identity work with my clients as well. So we're shifting the identity. I talk about high caliber women, and this is the woman who is more conscious. She's healed or healing. She's more aware, and she's deciding that she is valuable. She's deciding that she's worthy of the best match for her. And this isn't like from a place of arrogance or boasting, but it's just from knowing your innate value, knowing that Allah created you worthy and you are worthy, right? Because sometimes people, when they feel unworthy, they project that onto Allah as well. They think, I'm not worthy. Allah doesn't believe I'm worthy. Allah's just punishing me. And so the other thing I would say is believe good thoughts, right? Look at the thoughts that you're thinking. Are you thinking positive thoughts or negative thoughts about yourself, about other people, about Allah? It starts with your thoughts.
Yeah. MashaAllah. It starts with your thoughts. Everything starts from a thought, doesn't it? MashaAllah. This is fascinating stuff. And I like the timeline therapy thing that you do there. I think that's it's very, very important to be able to actually kind of replenish the wound, right? Almost, or you can then allow for the kind of for that kind of whole reinterpretation process or the rewiring process to really kick in. So and I mean, there's different ways to do that, but I think just getting them to revisit it, actually, heal the wound that way by talking about it, and getting them to actually reinterpret that in their own words of what that event meant. Because the truth is, in most cases, like, had they not gone through those specific challenges, whatever they are, some challenges obviously are more extreme than others. Sometimes there's abuse and all sorts of, very traumatic experiences. But if you don't revisit it, and if you don't see the grace, because there is always some hikmah, some hidden wisdom in all of the challenges that we've been through. And like, for example, like one way of framing this is like, had that not happened, they wouldn't have been in this process now of the healing journey, because a more enlightened version of themselves. They can become someone who's, maybe one day a means of healing other people and helping other people. I would have thought that I would be doing this kind of work 5-6 years ago, right? So, subhanAllah, and I don't, even when I started my coaching journey, I didn't know some of the things that I know now. You just evolve and grow, like you said, as you get involved in this. It started from some therapy sessions or whatever, and then it's just snowballed, right? And you come across different mentors, and you have like these kind of new aha sort of moments and breakthroughs. So we as coaches are constantly evolving and growing. Well, we should be always like trying to learn more and trying to grow. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that they've got to talk about that situation, that incident, and reinterpret it and be happy, or at least have given it a different meaning in order for them to then move forward and do whatever work that needs to be done. And the way I try to kind of put that across to them is by saying there's 3 things that you have to do. Number 1 is you've got to forgive the past. And number 2 is you've got to be happy about the present. And number 3 is being excited about the future.
Absolutely.
And most people, it will be either stuck at number 1. Some may have actually kind of accomplished number 2 to some extent, but are not necessarily excited about what's going on. All right. So I think you really need. Would you say that those 3 like components are really, really important in terms of the whole healing process?
We have to be willing to forgive. And that's a massive part of the healing journey. If you can't, if you're holding on to things from the past, you can never move forward. Because it's like a weight. It's like this you know, like the strong men competitions when they're like pulling the big trucks and things. It's like there's something, this big weight pulling you back towards your past. So you can't really have hope for your future because you're so focused on your past. You're not spending enough energy creating something in the present and in the future. So I absolutely agree with that. And
Yeah.
forgiveness is one of the hardest parts. But once you get to that place of feeling like every single thing that happened was actually a blessing because it makes me who I am today. And that's what I always say. It was all
Absolutely.
a blessing, even when it didn't feel like it. And it won't feel like it at the time. But once you get through it, which you will, because everything's temporary, you know, nothing lasts forever. Everything is temporary. It's always going to pass. You are going to get through it. And that's why it's all about your thoughts. Are you believing it's possible? What do you believe is possible? Do you believe that Allah's going to help you? And this is again having good thoughts about Allah, about yourself, and what's possible.
Yeah. MashaAllah. Do you put a lot of sort of emphasis on um, like
Mm,
amplifying du'as, quality of du'as? Because you've
yeah.
mentioned a few times now thoughts about Allah, right? So I just find that the way we pray to Allah is
Mm,
it's almost
yeah.
robotic. I'm talking about myself. This is how I've always made dua. Oh Allah, give me this, give me this, give me that. It's just like you're just like
Mm,
there's no effort behind it. Like just like let's just use the example of a child. Like when my child is crying, you know, we kind of we would try so many different things.
mm,
We'd like play with the child, try to hold them up a little bit, or play some games with them or something, so that you know we can kind of get
mm,
them to break their cycle, right? And I'm just thinking, like, if we want, like, this is the King of Kings, the creator of the heavens and the earth, right? There's no shortage in his treasures. It's like
yeah.
there's no limit, right? Limitless, you know, treasure. And we're just reading off like a list of things, you know, like, give me this, give me
Yeah.
that, give me this, give me
You just
that.
reminded me of something
It's
actually,
like,
and I think you mentioned another conversation about Sheikh Mohammed Al Sharif, rahimahullah. And I think I remember him saying something about you don't go to the creator of the worlds and ask for a penny, you know? It's just like
subhanallah,
so
absolutely.
powerful.
Mashallah.
It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
And then it's how we ask it as well, though, isn't it? Um, like just like a, you know, the example of the child, right? You know, you give them a sweet,
Mm.
you know, you try to play with them. You know, it's just like you're trying to
Hmm.
kind of different approaches to be able to kind of you know help that child to like to break that pattern of behavior in them. And now, if you want something from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, then like how about okay, let's think of like a good way here. Right, so with the child, we give them a sweet. With Allah, maybe we
Mm.
could give like some charity. Yeah, we give some charity before we start making dua. You know, just humbling ourselves. It could be a small amount, a normal amount, whatever that is. It's not.
Yeah.
It's the approach and the habit that we're trying to inculcate. All right. So give some sadaqah, you know, and then tell
Mm.
Allah how much you love Him first. Oh Allah, I love you. Allah, I love you. You know, like
Mm.
converse with your Creator. Subhanallah, He's the one that created us. Like it just like I just feel like this is
Mm.
so missing in our du'as. We do a lot of this in our Ramadan sessions.
Yeah.
Like tell Him you love Him, Subhanahu wa Taala. You know,
That's
and
it.
then call Him
That
by
was
His
just
beautiful
coming to my
names.
mind.
You know, well,
Mm.
you're the nourisher. You're the nourisher. You're the cherisher, you're the sustainer, you're the all hearing, you're the all seeing, you're the merciful, you know, like you're the just, you're the kind, you're the giver, you're the healer, you know. Now ask your dua. Oh, and even when you ask for your dua, ask
Mm.
for it as if it's already been accepted. Some people have a problem with that. Well, it hasn't happened yet. Well, okay, it hasn't happened, but
Yeah.
if you have a good opinion that it will happen, then, you know, Allah will deal with His servants according to you know their expectation of Him, right? So how about saying, "Oh
Mm.
Allah, thank you
Yeah.
for blessing me with a beautiful spouse. Oh Allah, thank you for allowing me to fulfilling our hearts with love and mercy for one another. If you're already married, oh Allah, thank you for allowing me to find, you know, like to do the
Mm.
necessary healing work to be able to find my ideal spouse, being separated or divorced.
Yeah. It's
Do you
like
see what I mean? Do you see the
gratitude.
difference?
Yeah.
Asking for the same thing, but the approach is so different, right? You've got to think outside the box if you really want to kind of, you know, like
Mm.
win this game of life,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know if you said
Absolutely.
something
No, no, absolutely. And I love
I
a
was
couple
going
of
off.
things that you said there, actually. A couple of thoughts came into mind. So, like gratitude, just being thankful for, you know, Allah says, the more that you're grateful, I'll give you more. I can't remember exactly what the wording is right now, but be grateful and I'll give you more. So if you're already grateful for it, you're going to get more, and you're already into the energy of you have it, and you feel better about yourself. You feel better about everything, and it's getting back into that positive energy that attracts more of the same. But also, I think something else came to mind is Allah is what you believe about him, right? Like now we talk about law of attraction, people might have heard of that, but Allah's already told us all of this. Think good of me. I am what you think of
Absolutely.
me. So if you think you're not going to get what you want from Allah, then you're not going to get what you want from Allah. But if you believe you've got it already, then of course you're going to get that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. This is really transformational. Honestly, if we can just that one thing, like just in terms of the
Mm,
quality of our supplications, and
mm,
you don't have to be a scholar. Like I'm nothing. I'm not making any claims here about being like especially
mm,
close to Allah than anyone else, right? It doesn't work like that. Like the judge, and the barometer for success, or the means to measure how close we are to Allah is the
mm,
way we call to him, the way we beseech him, right? The way we invoke his name. So like there is like race, color,
mm,
creed,
mm.
status, wealth, it doesn't matter in the court of Allah. So that means it's a level playing
Absolutely.
field for everyone. And that's beautiful, isn't it, right? That means there's hope for all of us. So yeah, I think there is
Mm,
there's so much to cover here in this topic, and it's just a beautiful topic to talk about. And
mm.
I always feel re-energized, and and of the work that we're doing, and you're doing, is that it's
Absolutely.
always a constant reminder for us as
Definitely.
well, isn't it, about how beautiful life is, and how there's so much abundance and opportunity, and how there's
Mm,
so much khair for all of us, despite our shortcomings. Like I've got so many like things that I could improve on, right? And shortcomings, but alhamdulillah, this gifts Allah's
mm,
given me, right? And it's all from Him. There's no good in me. And I feel like at this stage of my life, albeit it's a lot later stage of my life than I would have envisaged, but
mm,
I'm able to share some of those gifts. My words, my sincerity, my voice, my caring nature. I can share all of that now. Whether it's through charity, whether it's through praising Allah and His Messenger, whatever it is, right? Like it's pure
mm,
barakah, and
mm,
alhamdulillah, it's all from Allah, and it's about it
mhm.
all starts from your
Yeah.
relationship with Allah, healing that, and then everything else can just take care of itself, right? But I think like one thing I do really want to do before we wrap up. We've been going, mashallah, time has flown. I
I
said to you
made
like
some notes and
20
I
or
don't
30
think I've
minutes,
touched
right?
any
So
of what I was going to talk about, so apologies for that.
uh, well, maybe we need to do that's maybe a sign we need to get you back on again. But like, how can people work with you? I know you've got a
Yeah.
program called Ready to Receive. That was the title of this discussion. We haven't obviously done it justice in terms of like giving as much. Like you said, you made a lot of notes. You want to share so much, but people have got an idea now of what the kind of things that they would experience if they were to work with you. So tell us about your program. Like, what does it look like working with Sister Shalina
Yeah,
and Ready to
so
Receive?
it's a 6-week group program, and it takes you through the journey of healing those past wounds that we've just talked about, healing from parental wounds, letting go of that guard that we have to protect ourselves, all by working on the relationship we have with Allah and with ourselves, right? So we work on the relationship. Before we look at any other relationship, we look at that relationship with Allah and how we see ourselves. So I really help women find their own value again. It was always there. They just forget about it. They forget
Yeah,
because they believe other people's thoughts, other people's voices above their own. So we always get back into reconnecting to ourselves, our inner voice, that inner child. So we do a lot of inner child work. And I talk a lot about energy, how the energy is actually attracting a certain type of people. Yeah, because when you're acting from a wounded place, you're actually showing up in the world with that energy. You radiate a certain type of energy. You'll notice when you meet people, different people give off a different energy. You'll feel different around different types of people. And that's what people are attracted to. So when someone's looking for a spouse, they actually just want to feel a certain way. So I give them some understanding around, okay, what is it you want to feel? And I help the women get clear on what it is they're really looking for so they can create that if they're married in their relationship, or if they're looking for a partner. What are the traits? What are the traits of the person that you're looking for? Not surface level, deeper traits, like characteristics. Do you want them to be honest? Do you want them to be passionate, ambitious? Do you want them to make you laugh? Do they need to be funny? I help them find the feelings that they're looking for, and then what they need to be able to feel that within themselves first, so that they can attract the right match. And then lastly, we talk about the mindset. So a lot of my work is mindset and healing, and then creating those relationships consciously. So I talk a lot about conscious relationships, and that's all covered in 6 weeks in short video modules and then group coaching calls as well. So I've done one round and the women found it really powerful. So I've got one of my beautiful clients there, life-changing program. So glad to have found Shalene and her program. Thank you so much. I love you. I love the ladies that are in my group and everyone that I work with. And they've given me absolutely amazing feedback. So I know that it works. I know that the process works, and it's just a case of each individual doing their own work and being willing to allow someone, me or someone else, yourself, you're doing amazing work as well, Brother Shazad, just to be guided, to be open to seeing another perspective and having that accountability. So so that's coming up very soon. So if anybody wants to inquire about that, they absolutely can. But thank you for allowing me to talk about that.
No, you're most welcome. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly would encourage everyone to, inshallah, join your program. It's like 6 weeks, right? It's just like this 6 weeks could just change your life. And we've got, mashallah, someone here who's actually been on the program, who is recommending it. So I think that's always a good sign. There's people who are, giving the testimonials, who are saying that they've benefited, and I'm sure just listening to, your description of the program or some of the things that you're going through in those programs, I can just visualize some very, very emotional moments, some moments of tears and joy and laughter and happiness and all of those things, right? So, I think this is your gift. This is what Allah has you with to then pass on as your gift to it, to our brothers and sisters, where they can really change the direction of their life, and find their kind of inner gifts, right, and do the healing work that's necessary. And you can achieve anything. You can achieve anything in life, but accountability really is key. I think having someone in your corner, cares for you, believes in you, and will celebrate your wins, and sometimes will challenge you as well. I think that's definitely a good mix. All are key ingredients for a win-win situation. So that's really good. I think the group coaching model works really well as well, in the sense that you can obviously work with people collectively at a time. It's very difficult for us to work privately one-to-one with everyone. So I don't know if you do one-to-one coaching.
I do private as well, but actually the early bird offer does involve some private coaching as well on my program. So that's what I offered last time as well. And the women did really benefit from private coaching before the group call started. So I love private coaching, but again, like you say, it's hard to reach more women when you're doing only private coaching, and that's hence why I've gone into group coaching as well. But definitely I love both, and I think there's pros and cons to both of them, because 6 weeks actually isn't that long. And traditional therapies are a lot of talking, and I think that's the thing with coaching. We don't just keep repeating the same stories. We don't just want to stay in that phase of talking about it. We want to move on from it, and that's why we talk about releasing the emotion to create a new story and then create hope for the future. So we talk about a future vision. I help women create a future vision for themselves that they can connect to on a daily basis, which helps you again bring that forward into your life, because you're now open to seeing it. But absolutely, both private coaching, one-to-one, and group coaching. And when you see other women be vulnerable and healing and releasing everything, there's something else to that as well. Like there's just another power behind that. It's a massive gift to be able to heal in front of other women, because we sometimes hold back from other women as well, not just men. So it's just shedding those layers that we've built up to hide ourselves. And I find the more that you bring yourself forward and be more of who you are in the world, the more connected you feel to yourself, the more fulfilled yourself, but the more you get to shine this light that you have into the world, which again, I feel like all of us in the coaching business are able to do because we've been through that journey ourselves. Like I see you doing all of this amazing work as well, with couples and, you know, single people facing challenges. And it's just amazing work to do. So alhamdulillah, it is absolutely a gift and a blessing. And I just feel so grateful that I was guided this way.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah for everything, and alhamdulillah for this meeting we've had today and this discussion. And you know, as I mentioned to you offline, that you know, if one person benefits, and you know, mashallah, we've had a lot of people coming on and off, and there's going to be a lot more watching the replay. You know, if there are any questions, please feel free to send them. Inshallah, we can address them privately if need be. In terms of joining your program, people can just DM you on Instagram.
Yeah, there's a link in my bio. If anybody wants any information, they can just go to my bio and tap the link, sorry. And yeah, just reach out to me via DMs. I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Awesome, excellent. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this discussion. Just felt like it's just felt so easy just having this discussion with you because of I think the parallels, you know, in terms of our own journeys and in the terms of the work that we're doing. Like, you know, look, the way I look at it, like, just work with who you resonate with. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Like my mission is to serve, right? Serve our brothers and sisters, serve my fellow coaches, you know, my peers, my teachers. Be a person of service, right? If anything I've said resonates with you, then absolutely, you know, feel free to reach out. I mean, private one-to-one at the moment is difficult, just bandwidth wise, but we can definitely kind of get you involved into our group coaching program. And the group coaching is, like you said, it's actually a lot better than private coaching in some ways because of the group synergy. And then what people find is, oh, actually, it's a very safe space and it's confident. They start gradually opening up, and then people start helping each other through their own experience. So this whole kind of environment actually allows them to really push through a lot quicker than what they would do in a private one-to-one discussion. Right? So group coaching is like very transformational, very powerful. I've actually been in a group coaching program myself for like at least 6 years, right? And I've used that as a model in terms of the group coaching program that we have for our clients. But I think that my point I'm trying to make here is, if you resonate with Sister Shalena, then go with her, you know, because what she's doing is brilliant. She's getting results. You see what I mean? Like, it's not about, I find with some coaches sometimes there's a little bit of resistance, like, oh, you know, we're in the same niche, or, you know, I don't want to be promoting so-and-so, or, you know, like, it's just having that attitude of gratitude. Give, right? I mean, sometimes, you know, we find this from some of the non-Muslim coaches. They understand this better than us, even though this is part of our Islamic identity. You know, and you hear them say all the time, like, oh, you know, like, seek and you shall receive, right? So, like when we put ourselves out there and help to promote one another, then inshallah we'll get
it back.
The khair, we'll get the goodness.
This is that you give value.
You see what I mean? It come from somewhere. It come from somewhere, right? Might not come through this discussion, might come through somewhere else. So, alhamdulillah, thank you, Sister Shalena. Really was honestly you know, a privilege, to be honest, just to have have this exchange with you. And inshallah, I hope we can stay in touch, and maybe we can kind of do some future collaboration, inshallah, together. Thank you to everyone that joined. Mashallah, many of you have been kind of popping on and off. Sister Salma, I mentioned you earlier. Sister Madi has just joined. Mashallah, some of your clients are on there as well. So thank you to everyone. May Allah bless you all, and Inshallah, until next time. Assalamu alaikum
Alaikum.
wa
I just want to say
rahmatullahi wa
thank you so much
barakatuh.
as well, brother Shazad, for actually giving me this opportunity and for reaching out to me as well. And yeah, I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing as well. And yeah, inshallah, we'll keep in touch and maybe do another live. All right.
Inshallah,
Assalamu
inshallah.
alaikum.
Jazakallah khair. Look
Take
forward
care.
to it.
Bye-bye.
So much. Take care.